Business Russia, if you don't mind. Dear colleagues, we are happy to welcome you on the webinar of Business Russia, and with the support of the Embassy of India in Russia and our partners. So a small introduction about our organization. Business Russia is an all-Russia public organization that unites more than 3,000 entrepreneurs, mainly from medium non-resource business. Founded in 2001, the organization today has more than 83 regional offices across all the country. So if to speak briefly about our international activities, we have now more than 32 representatives abroad. These are so-called business ambassadors, and Olga Kulikova, who initiated this webinar, is our business ambassador in India. We also have the partners in all over the world, so to say, in the many countries: Japan, India, Germany, Canada, Italy, Spain, and so on. So we are glad that today we have the opportunity to learn more about the opportunities of doing business in India and to share this knowledge with our partners and entrepreneurs. So wish us good luck today during this webinar.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Let me take a few words. Dear colleagues, I'm happy to see you all here on the webinar. I'm Anna and represent Business Russia today. Thank you for opportunity to discuss the questions of entering Indian market. Russian delegations include business, public organizations, and Russian expert centers of a variety of regions. I will inform Russian colleagues shortly, and then you can start. At the end, I suppose we will have some questions from Russian side, and if necessary, I will translate them. Уважаемые коллеги, рада приветствовать вас на сегодняшнем мероприятии, посвященном вопросам выхода на индийский рынок. Спикер с индийской стороны, представитель консалтинговой компании ASA and Associates, мистер Аджай Сети. На презентацию и вопросы отведен ровно 1 час. В связи с ограниченным временем презентация будет на английском языке, но для вашего удобства мы посылаем текстовую презентацию, переведенную на русский. Вы можете скачать ее по ссылке в чате. Если вы хотите что-то сказать, кликните на значок микрофона и говорите, или пишите в чат. Если требуется перевод, переведем. Напишите об этом также. В дальнейшем вы можете направлять свои вопросы бизнес-послу деловой России в Индии Ольге Куликовой. Также просим ознакомиться с брошюрой нашего уважаемого спикера компании ASA. Она также по ссылке в чате. Презентация на 2 языках, а также брошюру вы также там найдете. Если нет в данный момент вопросов организационных, то мы можем начинать. Okay, we're ready to start.
Okay, so thank you both of you for making the introduction. Confess the second part of the introduction, which was in a language not known to me, I did not understand, but I'm assuming it said good things about me. So thank you very much. I have been asked to make a presentation about India and the opportunities in India. We as a consulting firm have been assisting a lot of foreign companies to really set up businesses in India. And we have been doing this for about 25 to 26 years now. A large chunk of our clients are Japanese companies which have set up business in India. And of late, we have been dealing with French companies and German companies. Given that experience, we have a fair idea what are the issues which come in. But I'll take a step back and really talk about India opportunity in a bigger way. Is the India opportunity real, or is it a myth, or is the election issue which is now sitting over India a big issue? So those are the issues I'll try to tackle. I'll keep it very objective, and questions, if you wish, at the end, I'll answer them as objectively. So let me begin by moving forward with the slide. So first of all, let me just give you an overview, a sample of what India's economic engagement with the world is. So first of all, let's talk about what are the countries which are investing into India from a foreign direct investment perspective. I'm not talking portfolio investment, because portfolio investment is hot money, which mutual funds or other funds invest into India and move out. Direct investment is long-term investment. from that perspective, this chart will show you that the main investors, if you look at number 1 position and number 2, it's Mauritius and Singapore. But just to clarify, Mauritius, Singapore, Netherlands, Cyprus, these are routing mechanisms for investing into India because all these countries share favorable tax treaties with India. So rightly speaking, it is Japan, UK, USA, Germany, France, which are the main investors from a foreign direct investment point of view. If you look at it closely, you will also see that these countries are primarily into manufacturing. So from that perspective, the countries which are moving into India right now, large chunk of manufacturing base coming towards India. This is what India's prime requirement is. India as a manufacturing base lags behind China for sure. And this is an area which even our Prime Minister keeps talking about through the Make in India movement. So that will give you a perspective of why we see Japan, US, Germany, and France, and even there's Korea, which is majorly investing. If you look at the sector-wise foreign direct investments coming into India, you will see that services account for the largest chunk. You will see computers and software are also a large chunk, and then you see telecom, and the graph keeps on moving. This graph looks very balanced from a perspective of foreign direct investment. It shows that the sectors, India is getting investments into all sectors. In my experience, I can tell you that about 10 years back, this graph looked very different. And about 15 years back, this graph looked absolutely strange. 35% used to sit in automotive sector, and the rest would just fade away. 10 years back, we had a couple of very large deals in drugs and pharmaceuticals, and the graph on drugs and pharmaceuticals ballooned to 15%. This graph is an ideal graph which any country would want, which is balanced foreign direct investments into India. Last few years, it has been balanced. This is a good indicator of what is coming towards India. Going forward on our trading side, our biggest trading partner for exporting, so the stuff which we move out from India, is actually United States. And if you look on the right side, you will see we are also importing from the United States, but which is virtually half, which would explain the temper which Trump sometimes has towards India, because he does not find us an equal trading partner. We could discuss more on Trump, but that is not the topic of discussion, so we'll restrict ourselves back to the India opportunity. If you look at the other part, we are exporting about, if you see the numbers, China, what we are exporting and what is being imported, there's a difference of 6 times. Now that is a very large difference. Does not do well to our fiscal deficit or our import-export balance. Another interesting thing you will see is that we import a lot from Switzerland. These are not chocolates, these are not watches, this is gold. India is the largest importer of gold from Switzerland, and that is why it shows very largely on our import bill. This story, let me move a step forward to talk about India and Russia. Historically, India and Russia have been very close partners on the defense side. Have been, I think, if you look at the point, 62% of the arms sales are from Russia. Again, on the nuclear power side, and I don't mean from the nuclear, anything to do with armament, I'm talking from the power build-up. Russia is now going to become a major player with India. As we move forward, sectors like agriculture, infrastructure, and transport, these are also picking up in a big way. And of course, technology. We are well aware that Russia is a powerhouse on the technology side. So India and Russia will engage in the near future in areas which I clearly see: agriculture, infrastructure, transport, and of course science and technology. I expect the old links on pharmaceutical and drug sides to continue. I also expect the oil and gas sector to grow between India and Russia. With the investment from Russia into India, into the oil and gas sector, which is one of the large investments. I expect this thing to continuously move up. Interestingly, this number which you see at bullet number 2, which shows we had to reach US dollar 30 billion by 2025, has already been breached. We've already achieved it, and a new target, I think, if I remember it correctly, of $50 billion has been set up for 2030. So as you can see, things are moving favorably well in the direction of links between India and Russia on the economic side. With that in perspective about how we engage economically, let's try to understand what have been the respective governments of India trying to do. What has been the game plan? And what I give you these 3 bubbles, what you see before you. One talks about routing corruption or stopping corruption. One talks about ease of doing business. Third is about inclusive growth. This more or less sums up what the government would want to do. And take my word for it, I've been seeing many elections happening in India. Comes, this will remain in focus now. So let's go a little deeper. What did the government do on routing corruption? These are the 4 big weapons, or let's say 4 arrows which the government used. Demonetization, which we have heard enough and more about. GST, which has been tom-tommed as the biggest thing India has done. Another thing called direct benefit transfer, I'll come to that, and technology. Current Prime Minister is extremely inclined to technology. Given the fact that he comes from simple background, it is quite astounding and remarkable that the man should take well to technology. Let's talk about demonetization. Demonetization was a fact because in India there was a lot of counterfeit currency. There was also the problem of black money in India, which I can better explain as a parallel economy, or let's use the word dirty economy. Now, we have been trying to fight this for ages. There is no quick solution for this problem because the problem sits with an individual. It doesn't sit as a community at large. So one of the quick fixes that came out was, let me demonetize the large currencies. So we had currency notes of rupees 2000, say about on an equivalent basis about $50 approximately, give or take. And also we had currency notes of 500 rupees. One fine day, he just knocked them both off and said, this is demonetized, and till the time new currency comes up, must shift over to digital or banking system. There are 2 opinions about this. Now that we have hindsight on the matter, there are 2 opinions on the matter. That A, it was poorly conceived. The other side says it's a great success because it started routing corruption. My personal view is, as an economic exercise, it was badly conceived. It could have been fully planned, and it could have therefore met greater success from the point of view of all the economists who take pot shots at it. From a long-term point of view, I think it has achieved some purpose. Earlier, larger currency notes, which is 2,500, used to comprise of 80% of the entire currency in circulation in the market. With demonetization, the aim was to bring the large currency notes less than 30%, or let's say around 20%, because it's difficult to hoard money in smaller currency notes. That has been achieved. Digitalization or people moving on to banking has also gone up a fair bit. Importantly, people are now eternally worried, could this be repeated, and therefore is it a good idea to store money or not? So from that point of view, that's been progress. Like I said, as an economic exercise, if I look at this in isolation, it's not very good because the cost of this exercise was about 26%. And actually we haven't recovered that much back money from the economy. So therefore, it's a partial success from my point of view. Now, why do I talk about GST? Why do I want to talk about GST for increasing the taxpayer base? How does it help me? I do see some questions popping up, and if you would permit me, I'll take up the questions towards the end. Now, I want to talk about GST as for routing corruption. GST is an indirect tax. Technically, it's got nothing to increase the taxpayer base. Let me explain to you about India. In India, a lot of people, these include a lot of smaller businesses, 80 or 90% of the business disorganized sector. What happens is, people who are purchasing raw materials and converting into final goods, they sometimes decide that they will pay lesser taxes, and that means they will show lesser sales. They deflate the taxes, and by deflating revenues, they deflate the tax amount payable. With GST coming in, time you purchase a raw material, it flags how much raw material you have purchased, and therefore it's easy for the government using the algorithms to calculate how much sales is possible. Therefore, cheating the taxes in the long run becomes difficult. I'm talking direct taxes, cheating becomes difficult. So A, you have a more efficient system of indirect taxes. At the same time, the same can be used for increasing the taxpayer base. So this is a very, very useful tool. Direct benefit transfer is a scheme. The farmers would, let's say, get fertilizers or other things at subsidized rates. Or there would be other benefits going to people in the rural belt. The problem. The money in between would pass through many, many hands and would keep on disappearing or keep eroded. The money reaching the final beneficiary was far lower than the government had anticipated. The benefit transfer, which is now being talked worldwide as one of the biggest hallmarks of what India has achieved, is a scheme by which people under a particular income earning will get subsidy transferred to their bank accounts directly in the form of cash, which means they can use it for things which are otherwise at normal rates. This scheme is being hailed all over the world as a very big hallmark. And also don't forget, large size of the population and making this happen is itself an interesting thing. 1.8 billion transactions have moved through already. So this is a very interesting thing. Technology is another area where self-attestation of certificates are being used for geo-mapping areas which are far-flung or where we have some problems of terrorism. And there are many examples I can give. What I'm trying to say is, at the citizen level also, we see the benefits coming in a big way. An example, a small example from a foreigner's point of view, that earlier the foreigners who were coming to India, they had to go across and register themselves at a body called Foreign Regional Registration Office, FRRO. It was a tedious process. You got a booklet, you came back, then you had to go again every year, then you had to do it for your family. All done away with. And now you can simply upload from your computer and you'll get a confirmation back and task is done. I'm just giving you one example of the many which we have seen happening in the past few years. As to inclusive growth, I would, instead of going into detailing of each one of the ones you see out there, I will just tell you, MRTS, which is the metro, and the one which is showing as power, and the roads and highways have been the success formulas. I think the building of roads has been the best ever seen for a long, long time. It's been most powerful. Power also has reached most of the villages, but I cannot say that all the villages are electrified because the power wire has reached them. Some villages, it's not necessary that all the houses have got electrified, but at least the big step forward from where we were sitting earlier. Electrification of India, I think, is no more a distant dream. Metro is one of the most powerful things which has happened. And while I stay in Delhi myself, and since I move between our offices in all locations, I can see the benefit coming to Chennai, benefit moving into Bangalore. Mumbai also already put through 4 lines, which they're saying will built up in the next 3 to 4 years. So I do expect this to be a game changer, and this is working absolutely on schedule. This is quite a wonderful thing, which normally I must, to be a little cynical, I have never seen projects getting well completed on time, and Metro has really proven me wrong. India can do things on time. Railways is way behind schedule, and that is a sad part, but this is also where the largest opportunity sits, because we have the most ancient or archaic system of railways, and the coaches are very old. Opportunities sitting in railways are huge because the government is pushing it really hard to improve the railway systems. So whether it be signaling, track laying, or it be coaches itself, or it be accessories supplying to these ones, it be ventilation systems, it is up for takes. Renewable energy also, I don't think so. We have done as well. Last year we did till 2017-18, we were doing pretty okay, but we slipped. This year we managed to slip. And this area requires a lot of attention, because besides solar, we had promised wind also, and we have been terrible on wind. This is an area which the government will have to give a closer look. Of course, how can I not talk about ease of doing business? 5 years back, when the current government took over, our ease of doing business index, we were sitting in the 150 range, and now we're sitting at, I think that's 70s range, we're sitting at 77. So obviously, it's something to be proud of. It's something which shows that things are happening on ground zero. So if this keeps on continuing, we hope to be in the 50 range. But let's see. I can already tell you, objectively speaking, we have a lot of homework to do on labor management, which is a weak area. But otherwise, I think we are doing pretty okay. Now that I'm talking about ease of doing business, I'll just pick up a couple of them. What did GST do? GST actually took 17 laws and compressed them into one. That's the good thing. Second thing, this was being planned for 10 to 12 years. I used to speak at various platforms in India and outside, and the question which would come up, when would India get its GST together? And finally, actually, I had given up. I thought that it's not going to happen. Because the problem with GST is, we have to get so many states. We have 28 states. And we have to get them all onto the same page. And it's easier said than done. Because each state has a different leader and a different party running it. And therefore, nobody was agreeing. So if you ask me, if somebody was to ask me in the near future, what was the thing I would give maximum credit to the current government, I would say getting the GST through was pulling the rabbit out of the hat, because it's a tough one. And the funny thing is, this is the very government, the current government, which was against the GST when the Congress was putting it up. But all said and done, it's been done. It makes the law simple. It actually reduced efficiency on logistics movement by at least you can say the petrol bills and the efficiency bills are 20 to 30% savings are already there. And this actually gives the government a very large database, extremely large database, to look at the future and find out those people who are avoiding tax payments. So there's a lot of power. GST is a lot of power. The other thing which we have is an Insolvency and Bankruptcy Act, which was earlier 6 laws. And believe me, all 6 of them were weak, were not useful. The current Insolvency and Bankruptcy Act, which is in its infancy stages right now, does the biggest change in the law itself. What it does, the earlier laws have power in the hands of the debtors. This puts the power in the hand of the creditor. If you are a creditor and you haven't received payments, you can actually go to the authorities and say, please shut down this company because it's not paying my money. And after you shut it down and sold the assets, pay me. To give the law its adequate teeth, guidelines and time limits have been given on how much time frame will this action have to be implemented. So if I go as a person complaining to the authorities and they say that yes, you got a case, then within 180 days the decision has to be taken. And after that thing, there can be some small extension of 90 days. After that, the matter starts going towards closure. So what I'm really talking about is a law which gives the creditor the ability to recover money. The other thing which is significantly different from the earlier law, the government dues got the first priority. So even if you went and you got a company closed, government was the first one to take the money, so creditor might get nothing. In the current arrangements, the creditors are the first and the government is the last. It shows the will of the government. And if any debtor or an employee puts false charges during the proceedings of claims, and if the charges are found to be false, they could well be prosecuted. So what I'm really saying, the power to the creditors is very good. This law is under test right now because most of the issue cases which have come in still got delayed. These delayed cases are causing us some problem because it gives bad press. But the law is tight. I wish the government would simply push through, and I was happy to read today's newspaper where the government has decided that by March 31st, they're giving themselves a deadline. All past pending cases on insolvency matters will be decided one way or the other, which means we have a fantastic law on Insolvency and Bankruptcy Act. I'm keeping my fingers crossed on this one. The third reform was Real Estate Regulation Act. Real estate is a very poorly regulated, let's say, area. Lots of builders normally book the flats for a ride in India. It's possible the builder might take money in one project, then do a partial construction, use the money to buy another land, and start selling that and start constructing with that money the first one, which was not acceptable. Under the new norms, he has to keep the money in escrow. There's a lot of regulations to look upon him. So builders are obviously not happy, but they are coming around to better ways to do business. They of course have their own complaints on this methodology. I'm particularly happy this change has come. This regulation is more on paper and less in effect because many states haven't subscribed to it. So government will have to push this through. I do think this law will see Indian real estate segment go up tremendously. I think some of the biggest players in the world will now start putting their hands in. And as a matter of fact, I've seen Japanese companies investing into real estate segment in a very aggressive sort of a way, both actually in three terms, in commercial projects, in industrial projects and residential projects. So I do expect a lot of action on this particular side. With that in perspective, now I've talked about the economy. I've given you a feeler of what the government was trying to do and where the government has been moving in a bigger sort of a way. So where do the opportunities lie? This is where I'll request you to give me your focused attention because this is a link up. First of all, whether elections have a bearing, I asked you a question. Personally speaking, as a consultant who has been involved with foreign direct investments coming to India, I really don't give too much weightage to these elections. Look at the economic policies, and the way I see it, there is nothing very major which is expected to change or move in the economic front. Most of the changes which had to be done are done. Most of the businesses are under the automatic route. Government interference is low and government licensing is absolutely low. So therefore, we are in a good direction. As a market, we are a consumer market, we are consuming a lot. So therefore, fundamentally, again, we are a good place to set up business in. And lastly, and not the least, these elections will have little economic impact, while they could have great impact on the hearts and mind of people who emotionally feel attached to one government or the other. But that's about it. I feel that there will be only emotional connects and disconnects. The biggest thing about India, which I like to tell, is in linking it with Asia, is the next slide, is middle class. This is a report, and McKinsey also supports this. The biggest thing which is happening is India, just like China and most of Asia, the habits of spending are changing. Earlier we used to spend on food and basic necessities, which is changing now to luxury items, or let's say semi-luxury items. The wallet is being utilized in a different way than earlier. So let's just for a minute, let's look what the middle class population of the world is doing and where is it moving. By 2020, we expect the middle class population, if more than 50%, to be in Asia. And if you look at the 2030, it is predicted out of the 5.4 billion, we expected more than 60% are going to be in Asia. This is very large chunk of the middle class population going to be sitting in Asia. And as you know our habits, we Asians love to consume, be it Apple phones or be it goods or be good clothes. And the next slide will show you that the consumption with the middle class will rise, and it is predicted by 2030 that 57% of the global middle class consumption will be in Asia. It is not without reason that countries like US, Europe are anxiously and eagerly looking towards India, China, because we are growing as a consumption base. Some very interesting statistics that the countries which were on the middle class consumption pattern in 2015, it was US, China, Japan, which were on the number, and India number 4. 2020, it's predicted China will become number 1, US will become number 2, India will be number 3, and Japan will be number 4. Interestingly, 2030 predicts China will be number 1, India will be number 2, US will be number 3, and Japan goes out and Indonesia comes in. Just a sample of how Asia will change the consumption patterns. Please do bear in mind, I am giving you these numbers on purchase power parity and not on absolute amounts. This probably is the most interesting slide for those of you who are seeing it from outside. On the left side, you see the major industrial clusters. The one on the top, it says Delhi NCR, is basically an automotive belt, because a large amount of automotive companies moved into Delhi NCR about 20 years back, or rather more like 30 years back, and then it's only grown. Ahmedabad, manufacturing base, and down under you have Bangalore, Coimbatore side, which has been the old, traditional manufacturing base for India. So this gives you an idea of the clusters. If you look at the map on the right side, you will see some colored lines. You will see yellow, you will see orange, you will see green. These are colored lines. These are the industrial freight corridors which the government has conceived. So my idea would be, these clusters, these freight corridors, these are where maximum investments are happening in terms of logistics, setting up warehouses, or building up infrastructures around them. And everybody's seen large Indian companies investing massively on these freight corridors. The most attractive of them has been in Delhi and Mumbai. This corridor has attracted the maximum attention. This is fast moving forward. The other one, which you see, the purple one, the small tiny one between Chennai and Bangalore, has also become quite activated. The one between Bangalore and Mumbai is still work in progress. I mean, it's more of paper. And the one from Kolkata across to Amritsar, which is passing through Delhi, is another interesting corridor. None of these corridors are anywhere around completion, but they are moving at a fairly good pace. This project, if together it goes through, would be the largest infrastructure project ever undertaken on earth. Interesting thing to watch out, and I would suggest to all of you looking at this, because opportunities sit on these corridors. The government has also announced inland waterways. India has a terrible, in spite of having so many rivers, a country being called a land of 7 rivers, we haven't been able to use the rivers very well for transportation and movement. It is a very tragic way of looking at things. We have been talking about it right from 1950s. Nothing has been done. The government has now come out with a plan of how to use these waterways, and I think it's a very positive step. What is the outcome? I cannot say, because all this is as good as about, let's say, a year old. It's been on paper for about 2-3 years, but it's a year old, and the good announcements have just come out last week. So maybe next year I'll be able to tell you the results on how the inland waterways do. I do want to mention the industrial freight corridors I spoke about have moved very slowly. I personally would have preferred them to move much faster. But anyway, it's a large project and a lot of money is involved. the support on one of the largest infrastructure of the Delhi-Mumbai corridor is from Japan. Given all that what I spoke, what are the sectors, right, from my perspective? Automotive sector remains very hot right now, and I expect it to keep growing. India is now talking electrical vehicles. As a matter of fact, day before yesterday, they announced that they would reduce and subsidize the GST on EVs, electric vehicles. This is a good indication. Infrastructure projects will keep on growing. Logistics is very hot. Healthcare is good. Real estate, maybe a little later. Retail is going to heat up very well. I see a lot of action there. Food processing, the government wants it to increase, but it will require much more push because the government really must do much more to promote this segment. Just to give you an idea, in food processing on an average, we lose somewhere between 20 to 35% from when the food is produced at the farm and it moves to the retail, because we have extremely poor cold chain, storage chain, so that causes a lot of destruction. For your information, the world average sits somewhere around 5%. So you see there's a lot of room for improvement, and this is another sector which could be hot. Hospitality also is picking up, and I'm seeing a lot of deals on the sphere which are happening in the hospitality sector. Hotels are going bought out by larger chains, or larger chains are coming in, which we never knew the names of. There's a lot of movement in all sectors. Since we do deal in M&A activities, we are seeing a lot of movement across these sectors. What are the challenges of doing business in India? Certainly, GST settling in is one issue, and if you were to come in, you will find that this will require some energy. Insolvency law requires better understanding. I think I already mentioned the industrial freight corridors should be accelerated. Technologically, I think the states and the center are a bit divided, and they do not work in great harmony, so that's another problem. And the biggest of all problem, labor laws. Yes, labor is a problem. We haven't handled it very well. It's very difficult. It's a very touchy topic in India, but government has been systematically trying to ease it. Labor, the amount of labor tightness we have on the laws is systematically trying to decrease it, but do not expect wonders out here. However, hiring a good manager to manage your labor issues is a real secret, and actually things do well. Don't forget, we have large industrial business houses which have all across India, and they have been having no strikes for 3 decades or so. So it's possible as long as you have a good manager to guide you along. So I come to my last bits of slides, and then we would love to take questions. If you are planning to come to India, how do you actually structure yourself? I'll give you quick and simple ones because I'm sure you would like to get on with the questions now. Take the left one. You could choose to come as a liaison office or a representative office, which is basically, is there an opportunity, not an opportunity? Is there a good partner, not a good partner? Normally the structures are set up for 2 to 3 years. Structures are not taxable in India. Of course, you have to ensure that you do not cross a boundary, but these are non-taxable structures, and they are very simple to set up, and they are very simple to shut down. The other two is project office. So if you're getting a contract from a government or a large, let's say you're getting a road construction contract, you set up a project office. You just approach the bank, and the bank will give you the permission to open your bank account, and you proceed on from there. Project offices are really for infrastructure projects. Branch offices, on the other hand, are a test. If you want to come to India and test your product, you can set up a branch office. The problem with branch office and project offices are, these are called extensions of your parent, and therefore they have very inefficient tax rates. So therefore, if you're planning to set up a branch office or a project office, be ready for a tax inefficient structure. So that's one idea. On the right, you will see a distribution channel where you could come by appointing an agent or setting up a franchisee, and these are also test run, a way to do test runs. Probably more tax efficient than branch office because you do not get taxed in India. But again, given the tax issues which go all over the world, primarily permanent establishment issues, this has got to be planned well. You do not land up in a situation when the distance between you and the agent is not seen as arm's length, and he's only representing you, and whereby you get taxed in India for some of your global profits. But anyway, that can be planned. The second one, the wholly owned subsidiary or setting up a limited liability partnership or a joint venture, is an ideal structure because it's more tax efficient than the others. And also it gives you a foothold into India. And this is a structure which probably is the better way to look at India. Because frankly speaking is no more, unlike 15, 20 years back, it's not a test market anymore. Think through your strategy, and if you're clear, come as a subsidiary or a joint venture or limited liability partnership. Because structures are well tested and they are much more in your control. And if you're going to deal with the government, these are better because you'll be able to tender for government projects, because a branch office has difficulty to tender for government projects. So ideally, if you're clear about your ideas, wholly owned subsidiary or a joint venture is a fairly good way to come. I could talk at length about how to deal with our Indian partner, what are the issues with the Indian partner, how the Indian partner is different from you, but I'll save it for another talk sometimes else. So just focus on these issues and I will take up the questions after just 1 or 2 slides more. I've just given you a broad idea of what the entities compare with each other. In a bottom line way, setting up these structures now, any one of these is fairly simple. It's no more that much complicated. Loss of money for consultants like me, but it gives speed and what is good for my country. So I'm quite happy. To give you an idea, setting up a company earlier took something like 3 months. Now I'm saying 4 to 6 weeks. We have also seen cases, if the paperwork is provided to us on time by a foreign company, it can happen in 2 to 3 weeks time also. So this is a very positive step. Because of the insolvency law coming in, and if you decide to shut down your company tomorrow, earlier it used to take 7 to 8 years. Shut it down within 1 year now. So you see there has been a lot of improvement on this thing. Shutting down liaison office, project office, branch office is quite simple. Setting up is easy, shutting down is simple. There are some side tax issues which creep in. But anyway, I guess you want to pay your consultant something and you don't want me to become poor at all completely from these activities. So from their entity structures, let me talk about why if down the road we could be of help to you, and that's why we have been in this business for more than 28 years now. We have offices across India. We have 700 people working around the clock. We have, besides these offices, we have very good teams which are continuously trained and upgraded. And these people are 80% of my clients are foreign companies, so they do deal in foreign companies work primarily. And these come from all over the globe. I could talk more, but I think the issue is not about me talking, the issue is about your questions so that I can do justice to them. Thank you very much for listening to me, and I welcome the questions coming from you. Thank you very much.
Dear colleagues, I hope you can hear me because I would like to say thank you to Mr. Ajay for the useful information. I'm sure that our Russian colleagues took it into account in achieving their success of their business in India. Let's move on to the questions. Please take a break after your answer for me to be able to translate the answer if it's necessary.
Sure.
The first question is about medicine. And one Russian medicine company wants to find a partner in India to export medical services with possible production placement, and they want your advice how to start them successfully.
Okay, so if you are looking for a drug and pharmaceutical entry, the areas which are where these kind of factories are set up is down south near Tamil Nadu, and also in north area, in an area around Chandigarh. And then of course there are some factories also in Hyderabad. How do you go about doing it? I think the better way to do it is to be in touch with a consultant who would guide you to what areas of production or the drugs you're looking at, what are the allowability under the Drug Act in India, where are the main clusters of that particular drug you're looking at, and thereafter guiding you to either buy a company or decide to set up operations. So what you need is a good consultant. Hopefully that could be us.
Наш уважаемый коллега индийский поясняет, что для начала вам нужно понять, какие виды производства вас интересуют, в частности, это будет зависеть о локализации вашего производства. Ну и на самом деле вопрос довольно-таки общий, поэтому вам необходима мощная консультация для того, чтобы не наделать ошибок. Ну и в частности, естественно, АСА может вам в этом помочь, поэтому если у вас будут какие-то вопросы, вы можете писать Ольге Куликовой на почту, либо обращаться непосредственно в АСУ. Все контакты вы можете найти в брошюре. Thank you, Mr. Ajay. I hope our Russian colleagues understand your answer. And the next question is about your company. For exporters, they want to enter Indian market and to find partners, and they want to know what services you can provide them. And are you interested in technology and especially technology in water recycling?
To answer the first question, we do help a lot of companies to find distributors in India. So if you are planning to export things, you would logically want to tie up with a distributor. We can help you find the ideal distributor. Please do keep in mind that India's biggest challenge is supply chain management. We don't have a demand problem, we have a supply problem. So finding good distributors is one of the challenges, and finding an all-India distributor is a super challenge. So therefore, the main issue is finding distributors which could be varying from north and south, and that's an expertise we have. So we'll be very happy to assist if you require that. Second question which you asked about the company which is looking at water recycling. Yes, it's an area of deep interest in the government of India today. As a matter of fact, I have already 2 clients, one Japanese company also, which have invested heavily and are looking at government tenders. The other company has chosen not to join to pick up work from the government, but they are looking at recycling from another angle. We have the experience on water recycling, and if you're looking at that, we could help you to understand the market better.
Thank you very much. Let me translate. Наталья Владимировна, ваш вопрос. Соответственно, наши коллеги ответили, что они, в частности, что самое важное, помогают найти дистрибьютора для российских компаний. Это самая сложная задача, которая стоит перед нашими отечественными компаниями, поскольку есть серьезные проблемы с поставками в Индии. И в частности, про ваш вопрос относительно технологии очистки воды. Да, этот вопрос стоит очень остро в Индии. Я думаю, все в целом понимают эту ситуацию, поэтому они готовы вам оказать содействие. Поэтому прошу вас написать либо напрямую им, либо вы можете сформулировать свое предложение даже на русском нам, написать Ольге, соответственно, я переведу все это и направлю им, и дальше будем как-то взаимодействовать. Thank you. Так, the next question. The next question is... how difficult is the process of setting up a trading company in India? Насколько сложный процесс начать свою компанию в Индии?
Okay. See, actually, setting up a trading company, if you had asked me this question 10 years back, I would have given you a very long answer. But now it's a fairly simple process. You go to a consultant, you start making your documentations. The documentations have to be certified outside of India. That is your main parent company documents. You submit it with the registrar of companies, and if he allows you, then you set it up. Given the fact that we know how foreign companies have to take approvals from the board and all, I think 4 to 6 weeks is all it takes. There is no government interference, there are no special permissions, and you can start your business. So it's a fairly simple, straightforward process.
Thank you. Процесс сложный, в частности, связанный с документацией, потому что, несмотря на все нововведения, которые были в Индии, например, Doing, Индия и так далее, которые упрощали в какой-то мере начало бизнеса в Индии, все равно есть свои нюансы, свои сложности, поэтому лучше, конечно, все это отдать дело профессионалам. Так, and the last question, let it be, what are the immediate risks that India faces and which are the issues that need attention? Ну, соответственно, какие основные риски существуют в Индии и чему стоит уделить особое внимание?
I think since you asked me on a greater platform of India, the biggest risk India today has is oil prices because we are very dependent on oil. The biggest chunk of our money is spent on oil. That's my number one risk. My number two risk is that the banks, we have banks which are laden with a lot of non-performing assets. So one side I have non-performing assets, and because many of the banks are government owned, the government has discouraged them directly or indirectly from giving out credit. So I have non-performing assets and banks not giving loans, which is a very peculiar problem because how do I service my deposits then? My third problem is fiscal deficit. The government has to cut down its expenditure, which the government has to work harder. My fourth problem is GST, which needs to be pushed more because people have to understand that it will take 1 or 2 years more for it to settle down. So these are the challenges on a broad basis. Of course, US also is a challenge because if US keeps tightening the screws on us economically, we have a tough time because if US was to raise up their Fed rates, the money will get pulled out of India, and that's also a big stress for us always. So these are some of the stresses or the challenges we face. And if the government has to focus on something, I think simplifying, I would give a few pointers. Simplifying GST would be one. Taking of loans from the bank simpler would be number two. Giving insolvency and bankruptcy code much better teeth would be number three. Privatizing public sector banks would be number four. And number five would be pushing exports much more harder than presently, so we resolve the fiscal deficit. That would be my view on the final question.
Thank you. Ну, соответственно, три основные проблемы выделим. Это цены на нефть. Индия очень зависима от этого фактора. Я думаю, что мы все, как соотечественники, понимаем, какие проблемы могут повлечь данную зависимость. Второе – это банки. В основном они все государственные. И, соответственно, очень сложно получить какие-то кредитные инструменты. И третье – это фискальный дефицит. Вот. В общем, как-то так. And I think the time is over. Oh, sorry. The last question. Is the oil and gas the most popular business vertical in India? The last question.
The most popular, presently what we are seeing is actually two or three. So of course, if I don't say software, it would not be fair, but for software we are really feeding the world, so we are not very innovative ourselves. But two things which are moving very well. One is traditional, which is the automotive segment, which is doing very well. And the second one is startup, which is in all areas, and the younger population is coming out with wonderful ideas. So these two, I would say, are the pillars on which the new movement is happening.
Okay, one more question. I think that questions which are in English doesn't mean them to be translated. Our product is software for hospitals. Our main problem is to meet the decision makers and understand the needs. Is there any specific association or meetup in India where they can be reached?
Well, just like every other sector, there is a body there is a mother body which takes care of all the hospital, which is I think the medical association, but they are no help on these matters. There is a different body which takes care of where the hospital management meets. I have forgotten the name, I must confess. I will later send you the name if you wish, but that's a body where they can meet. But that I've given you general knowledge. The way to approach this problem in India is, you got to find out who is the administrative head of a hospital and try to find inroads. Fortunately or unfortunately, this works through personal contacts. So you will have to hire somebody who will make these meetings happen so that you can go up front and do it. The current hospitals, and by the way, there are a lot of software on hospitals available now, and they are from all over the place. So you'll have to have very good softwares to be able to compete in the market, and it'll have to be price efficient. That's number one. Number two, mid-segment is where you would like to attack, because the new hospitals which are, the large hospitals like Max and Fortis are already there. Mid-segment, which are spreading all across India, and we have Columbia, we have new chains coming up, they would be very attractive for you. And for them, you'll have to find out the management people there. Some of these we could directly help you because we know them. Some places we'll have to find ways to get to you in.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, I see. I think there are no more questions and the time is over. I want to say thank you to Mr. Ajay and to Asa for this useful information. I'm sure that our Russian colleagues took it into account, and I want to say thank you one more time and to say goodbye to everybody. If you have any questions or you need some information, you may reach us by email through Olga Kulikova. So that's all.
Thank you, everybody. That was wonderful to talk to you. I wish you all the very best in India. Thank you.